Okay, so let's take up the homework question 12E. This one, I see fractions. I don't like fractions. What should I do? Cindy?
Multiply by 15.
Multiply everything by 15. Good. So that's your lowest common denominator between 3 and 5. So I'm going to multiply this first term by 15, multiply this second term by 15, and multiply this third term by 15 as well. Okay, that's what I'm doing. And then reduce my my fractions. So 15 divided by 5 is 3 times 3k, 9k. Okay. Or again, it's the same thing if you do like 15 times 3 divided by 5, you also get 9. Okay. Minus 15 times 6, 90. Good. Equal 15 divided by 3, 5 times k, 5k. Okay, so one step, no more fraction. Looks much cleaner. Next step. Notice I have k's on both sides. So what should I do? Collect like terms by moving them to all one side. So I'm going to move this 5k over. And when I move it, this becomes, right, minus 5k. And this minus 90, when I move this over, it becomes plus 90. Okay, so when you move the plus and minus over, you have to change the sign. So 9k minus 5k gives you 4k. And then this side, 0 plus 90 is just 90. Right? Last step. What am I going to do with this 4? Divide. Good. Okay, because this is 4 times k, so opposite means divide. So 90 divided by 4, k equals? You can reduce it. Yeah. Right, okay, so you can either write it as a fraction, 45 over 2, or as a decimal is 22.5. You'll likely see this question maybe in a multiple choice. So like maybe this would be like a 2-point multiple choice question. So then you'll have to know, like if the choices are in fraction form, it will be this. If it's decimal form, it will be this. Okay. If you did the decimal and then you're not sure which one of the answer it is, remember 45 over 2 is just 45 divided by 2 on your calculator, and you'll just get the same thing. Okay, fraction, this fraction line means divide. So let's say in the multiple choice, I get these 4 answers, for example. Okay, A, B, C, D. A is 22, 22.5, 12, and 1, for example. Something like that. These 4 choices. I have no clue what to do. But I'm given these 4 choices. What can I do to figure out the answers based on these answers?
Put the number into like
the question. Yeah, for the k. That's right. So I could substitute each one of these and then see if left side equals right side. If it does, I can get the answer that way as well. Okay, but obviously I want you guys to solve by algebra, but if worst comes to worst, you can still sub in the number to see if it's right. So for example, let's say I sub in the 1. 3 times 1 over 3 is 3/5 minus 6. 3/5 minus 6 is around like negative 5 point something. And then here, if I sub in the 1 for the k is only 1/3. Left side doesn't equals right side. I know this is not the right answer. Okay, so that's the good thing with multiple choice. Like you have 2 ways of answering the question. Hey, so there's a reason why I took up this question particularly from the homework, because this one involved fractions and also multi-step where you had to move variables, separate the variables and the numbers on both sides. Okay, so let's move on to today's. Today we're doing solving for a variable. Okay, solving for a variable. So take out paper, pencil. This is the lesson. Okay, solving for variables. We have 3 examples today. Okay. Solve for a variable. Okay. So example 1, solve for y. Okay, so notice this. Okay. Copy down the example. What's different in this equation to the ones that we've been working on? Addition? 2 variables, right? So you have an x and a y. So how do I know which one I'm solving for? Read the question. Make sure you read the question. All right? So it's not always solve for x. I could say solve for y. So if it says solve for y, it means at the end, my answer. I want my answer to be y equals something. All right, so my final answer, it should be in the form y equal. All right, so if I want y by itself on one side, what do you think I need to move away from the left side? The 3x, right? And I love how you guys said the whole term. You guys said the whole term 3x. I'm going to move that 3x over. When I move it, it becomes negative 3x. Good. Right. So after I move that, what's left on the left side? Negative 15y equal. Now, it doesn't matter which you put first. I personally like to put the variable first and then the constant last. That's because later on, when we do y equals mx plus b, you guys will be more used to this format. So technically, I could put negative 150 minus 3x or minus 3x minus 150. Same thing. Okay. Next step, I still want the y by itself. So what else do I have to move away? Move the negative 15. Good. By doing what? Divide. Yeah, so divide everything by negative 15. So divide this term by negative 15, divide this term by negative 15. So divide both terms. So after I move that negative 15 over, I'm just left with the y. And then what is negative 3 over negative 15? Can I reduce this? What's this fraction? 1 over 5, right? So not just 5, but you got the right idea. 1/5 x. And what about this? Negative 150 divided with negative 15. Sorry? I heard. What's negative 150 divided by negative 15? Brianna? 10. Sure. Yeah. Okay. But notice it looks a little weird right here. What do I need to connect the terms? Plus. Okay. It's a plus because the two negatives made it a positive. So it's positive 10, you have that plus 10. If it's negative, then you have negative 10, minus 10. Okay. So, yeah, that's your answer. So, in this case, because there are 2 variables, you don't get that x equals 100 or y equals 1,000. You don't get a number. Instead, you get an expression. Can she stay for the next 10 minutes first?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gia, just stay for the lesson first, and then you can go.
Yeah, next 10 minutes, and then, so meet me around the main office.
Okay, second example, same thing. I see 2 variables. Which variable am I solving for? Why? How do you know? It says it in the question. That's right. Okay, so you're trying to solve for y. That means everything else other than this y has to go to the right side. All right. So what am I moving to the right? And the 6x, right? So each of the terms have to go. When you move the terms over, change the sign. So 6x becomes 6x. And this? Negative 8 becomes positive 8. Okay, so let's rewrite our second line. So after we move those over, we're left with negative 2y equal. Again, I like to write the variable term first. So negative 6x plus 8. Okay. Okay. And then now I'm going to move that negative 2 over. So you guys were so good that you knew to move the terms over first and then do the dividing last. Right? So move those first. And then as the last step, divide everything by negative 2. Divide this by negative 2, divide this by negative 2. So who can tell me my final answer here? Mohini? Okay, so she said 3x minus 4. Y equal 3x minus 4. Remember, you have to have an expression. Your final answer should always be y equal. Okay. If the question has an equal sign, your answer should have an equal sign. Otherwise, if you just write this is an expression, this is an equation. Okay. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 gave you the 3. And then the 8 divided by negative 4 at 2 gave you the negative 4. Or in other words, minus 4. Okay. So these later on in the next chapter, we'll do a lot of this because this is in y equals mx plus b form. If we graph these, what do you think we'll get? What do you think we'll see in that graph? Rihanna? A line, yeah. This is the format of a line. So in the next chapter, when we get into graphing, we'll do tons and tons and tons of lines. All right. So your question might not only be x and y. It could be solve for r given the area of a circle a equals pi r squared. So what are we solving for this time? R. All right, so that means my final answer. I want r equal. So even though it's on the right side, same idea. Everything else, you want to move it away. What do I move away first? Pi. Good job. How do you guys know to move the pi first and not the square first? It's a number, okay. And yeah. Good job. Wow, you guys are so good. Okay, remember when you're solving, you do math backwards. So this is a number. So you're gonna divide first, and then you do the exponent. Okay, so remember when you're solving, you do math backwards. So when I divide this pi, I get a over pi equals r squared. Right? Because this is pi times r squared, so opposite is divide. All right. So now how do I move that square? How do I move that square over? What's the opposite of square? Square root. That's right. So now when I move it over, it means it's square root. So what's my final answer? How do I write out my final answer? Antonia?
So it's going to be square root of a over b.
A over pi, yep.
Equals r.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, it looks very weird, but that is the right answer. When you get into grade 10, 11, you'll know that it's actually positive, negative. But you won't get into that until like grade 10 and 11. There's more to just square root when you get there. Okay, so this equation tells you the area of a circle. Pi r squared helps you find the area of a circle. what does this equation help you find? The radius of a circle given area. Okay. Yeah. So why is it important to sometimes rearrange equation? Is because you could be given a question like, given the area of the circle is 100, what is the radius of the circle? Okay, so you see how like when you're asked different things, you have to rearrange the equation differently. This one solve for area, this one solve for radius. Okay, how is it going so far? Weird, but understandable. Okay, last example, word problem.
Why did you always make us do work?
Because you guys need to practice. Yes. Okay, so Jessie has $20.50 in change in her pocket.
She had like big pockets or something.
Yeah. She has 2 pockets. So, yes. All right, and there's no loony or toonies in there as well. There's all quarters and dimes only.
What are those things on the board? Like 40% lead actually failing.
Well, I'll talk about that after. All right. So write a linear equation expressing the total in quarters and dimes. Okay. So based on today's lesson, how many variables do you think we should have? 2. What are good variables to use? Q and D. Sounds good to me. Sounds right. So let's say Q to represent number of quarters and D to represent number of dimes. Right. So let's write our first equation. Can somebody set up the first equation for me? Right. So how much are quarters as a number? 25 cents. So Brian? 0.25Q. If I just write 25Q, that means $25. All right, so 0.25Q. And what about dimes then? 0. Dimes are 10 cents. All right, so just like how we did last week, we had to translate word problems into an equation. So I want to know the total. So what sign should I have in the middle? Plus, and it should equal how much? $20.50. There you go. You translated this word problem into an algebraic expression. Yay. I'm very proud of you guys. Write an equation to express the number of quarters in terms of dimes. So part B, what am I solving for then? All right, so who says Q equal? Who says D equal? Who says I don't know? All right. Why I write it so confusing is because the textbook writes it so confusing. So express the number of quarters. And then forget about what it says after. Okay? I wrote it like this because the textbook wrote it like this. So all you have to care about is when I say express for the number of quarters, it means solve for Q. Solve for Q. Right? Don't worry about the part where it says in terms of dimes. In terms of dimes just means your equation should have dimes in it. Okay. So that means I'm going to move this over. So I get 0.25Q equal what? I have to move this term over. Brianna? This is still on the right side. Right. All right. So that's a common mistake too. People forget that this was on the right side in the first place, and then they just forgot it, disappeared. All right. Next, my next step. I have to move that 25 cents over. What am I gonna do with this? Divide everything by 0.25. Yeah. So Q equals, you can use your calculator. So negative 0.10 divided by 0.25. What do you get? Negative 0.4 D. Good. And then this, 2050 divided by 0.25 plus 82. That's right. All right. So we rearranged the equation. We rearranged this equation into Q equal. What do you think part C is asking you then? So solve for time. Express the number of times, aka solve for D. Alright. Can you guys try to rearrange this equation to solve for D now? Take 30 seconds, try it. This one, solve for D. So D equal. Yeah. Not yet, 2 minutes. I'll be done in 2 minutes. Alright, so solve for D. Okay, take 30 seconds, try it. Alright, I'm doing it too. So let's see if you guys got the same answer as me. Okay, who has an answer for me? Okay, Brian.
B equals 205 minus 2.5.
Yeah, that's it. Good job. How many of you got this? Good. Okay. So notice Brian said 205 minus 2.5Q. Same thing. But as I said, I do like to write that variable first and then the constant last, just so that you have the same habit in the next chapter. Okay. So last part. We have an equation for quarters. We have an equation for dimes. Use any of your equation, this one or this one, and find 3 possible combinations of coins. Okay. So Jessie has $20.50 in her pocket, and she says, "Guess how many quarters and dimes I have in there." So let's say one pocket is with dimes, one pocket is with quarters. All right, guess how many coins I have in my left one. All right, so give me one combo. Brian?
205 times the 0 quarter.
Good job. So I can have 205 dimes and 0 quarters. That number looks familiar. Where did you find those numbers?
Divide by 0.1.
Where did I see that 205 from?
205.
From this equation right here, right? So if I have 0 quarters, it means I have 205 dimes. All right. Apply that same knowledge to this equation. What would my second combination be?
82.
82 what? 82 quarters, right? 82 quarters. And how many dimes? 0. Yeah, 0 dimes. So you see why sometimes it's important to rearrange the equation? When you rearrange the equation, you can see the easy ones. So looking at this equation right here, can I have 1/4? Okay. Brianna? Okay, so if I sub in 1 right here for 1/4, how many times would I have? Negative 2.5 times 1 plus 205. What do I get? I get 202.5 times. Can you have that? Can I have 0.5 of a dime? That does not equal a nickel. So if you go to the store and give them half a dime, they're not gonna take it as a nickel. So can I have 1/4? No. What's the minimum number of quarters I need to have here? Bella? 2. So if let's say I have 2/4, how many times would that give me? Negative 2.5 times 2 plus 205. So that gives me how many times? 200. Okay, so there you go. So instead of just looking at this equation and trial and error different combinations, you can actually rearrange the equations into different form, and then it will be much easier to find combinations. Okay. And yes, remember there will be questions like this where you cannot break a coin, you cannot break a person, you cannot break a fruit in half. Okay, so keep in mind sometimes decimal numbers don't make sense. Okay, any question on today's lesson? Okay, so you will see a lot of word problems in these, so make sure you do try them. Word problems I know sometimes could be hard, so try these ones, try these ones, try these ones. Where can you find these questions? Brightspace, content, not word problem. Chapter 4, solve for variable. All right. So there you'll see the lesson that we just did, the questions, and then the actual questions with answers. Okay? All good? Okay, so let's start working. These are the questions from here.